It's the Cool Kids Club. You've been invited to the Cool Kids Club. It's so exciting, yeah. Justin likes monsters, yeah. And Amy likes words in the Cool Kids Club. Cool Kids Club.
Hey, cool kids, and welcome back to the Cool Kids Club. This is episode 84.
That was quite the intro. You're coming in hot today.
I'm coming in hot on this here Sunday.
You put a lot of flavor on that.
I did. Put a lot of stank. Did I put some stank on it?
A little stanky.
It's a little stanky. Well, I'm Amy, and you are...
I'm Justin.
Yeah, and we're
not
we're
as
resident
stanky.
cool kids. It's just a normal amount of stank today from you.
Yeah.
Yeah. We are the resident cool kids, and hosts of this here podcast. I'm doing all right. How are you doing?
I'm okay.
Just okay.
And that's it for today, everyone.
And that's it. Do we stay cool until next time? You have been on a staycation.
I have.
Which I'm very envious of.
Today is the last day of staycation, so we're going hard on the relaxation today.
Yeah.
Which makes for some prime podcasting. I'm getting there.
Yeah, it really does make for prime podcast. You've basically turned your brain off today, so let's
absolutely
let's record a podcast.
Let's do it. Let's make sure I am at my most relaxed.
Most mentally alert for sure.
Yeah, and we got a real Justin one today.
It's a real juicy topic.
I'm just gonna say juicy.
Were you?
No, I wasn't.
Juicy.
I wasn't. But
it's a real juicy Justin topic.
A real juicy Justin topic. I don't love that. And I don't
either. I've said it and I regret it.
Yeah.
Let's stop. Justin, what are we talking about today?
Well, it's the some summertime, and in the Cool Kids
Y'all
Clubhouse.
know what that means?
That means it's wrestling season for some reason. I don't know.
For some reason, yeah. I don't know what that is, but it just feels like the time to...
It feels like the time to talk about
some dudes and
some
throw
wrestling,
them around.
and alternatively, which we're not really talking wrestling today. We're talking wrestling today.
Oh, okay. There's a distinction.
There is, and we will get into that because we're talking about we've done for the last however many years at this point we've been doing this. This is the fourth.
The last 2 summers.
This will be the fourth.
I don't think we did one the first year. Yeah.
Yeah, we did. We did the golden era. We did.
Okay, we have.
The
You're
new
right.
generation and the attitude era in WWF. This is the first we've done of another company, and there's really,
true.
There was one other company that was just as much a cultural milestone at this time, and that's WCW. And that's not wrestling, that's wrestling.
Okay. Well, how did...
R-A-S-S-L-I-N, that's wrestling.
Well, if you are... we do have some listeners who really, really love the wrestling episodes.
Yes.
So I just want to, do a quick plug. First of all, if you're new to the podcast and you have not gone back and listened, all of the... I think all of the wrestling ones we've done are 2-parters. Isn't that right?
They are.
So you've got 6 episodes about wrestling to listen to that we have done. Justin also is the co-host of Blue Bard Cage and has been for years, even before we were a thing. And that's an all wrestling all the time. So definitely go check both of those things out.
Well, thank you. Now that was the only goal. We need to do the episode now.
This was just an elaborate ruse to get more people to listen to your other podcast.
Yes.
Oh,
which we haven't done in quite a while.
Perfect. That really frees up my afternoon.
Oh, good.
Honestly.
Good.
Yeah. Well, okay, so we're talking about WCW today.
Yeah. Tell me, do you remember much about WCW? I know that...
Sting.
Okay.
That's what I associate with WCW. We've talked on here about how really my interaction with wrestling was when we were very, very young and living in Florida.
Sure.
Whereas you are still got back into it in adulthood. And I just have a very tertiary pop culture type knowledge of it. Thank you. But so as a kid in the 90s, I remember we didn't really watch a lot of WCW. I don't remember watching a lot of WCW. I always really preferred WWF, and I remember thinking of WCW as like a bit nastier, like a bit like
nasty, huh?
Like a
stanky, nasty,
like a stank, like a not as refined.
Not as refined,
which is funny.
Okay.
When you look at WWE.
When you're talking about wrestling.
When you're talking about wrestling. Yeah, there's just something about it where I was just like, it was in my mind.
Kind of grimy.
Like, oh, that was kind of grimy, kind of dirty.
Yeah.
A little racier.
I think that's fair. I think it's
Yeah.
especially in those, especially in like up until like the mid 90s.
Right.
It certainly was that, because it was really like a regional thing. You know, you have, and I've, you know, we've done the wrestling bit, but that is kind of the joke of like, it's a different style of how.
It's that dirty South.
It's that dirty South.
It's that dirty
Southern
with three
style,
R's. Like
Southern
Christina
style
Aguilera.
wrestling is a lot different than like the Vince McMahon.
It's stank nasty.
It's stank nasty wrestling.
Now Vince McMahon is stank nasty, but in a different way.
He is, and unfortunately, we got to talk about him because it is impossible to talk about professional wrestling without talking about Vince McMahon. So
we did talk last time. I am remembering.
There's like every time we do one of these yearly wrestling episodes, it's like something horrific new, and I'm trying to think, all right, what horrific stuff has happened in the last year?
Well,
he's not with the company anymore, and he's awful, and there's ongoing stuff.
I feel like we talked about this when we were doing last summer's.
Yeah.
And that seems like it was not a year ago in my mind. That seems like it was 6 months tops. Like, I don't know if time is just really going that quickly, or if we talked about it later after that. I don't know.
We're racing toward the grave, you know.
I got one foot in the grave and the other on a banana peel. So
let's delve into this.
Let's delve into this. I'd like to spend my last remaining moments talking about WCW.
I thought that you might.
Yeah,
I thought that you might. And you're right. I would call it stank nasty.
It is
stank nasty
yeah.
wrestling. No, it's a little. You know, so if you there's a lot of background we've already kind of gone into as far as like the NWA and this territory system. So if you are unfamiliar with that. We've covered it already on the show.
In our very first
episode, the Golden Age episode, I think.
Yep, we did.
So, yeah, essentially it was, you had these little regional companies sort of all over under the umbrella of this one organization. And whereas WWF, the like sort of how it was formed is pretty simple and linear. Mm-hmm. WCW is sort of born of a couple different companies, and it gets a little confusing, and so I'm gonna try to get too not in the weeds with how it was developed, but really you can trace the origins of the company back. I mean, you can trace it a little earlier than this, but in kind of a where it was in a familiar form is 1972 with Georgia Championship Wrestling. So essentially you have two companies that sort of predate WCW.
Two companies?
Two companies? Oh, we got this. It's not going to be the last time. I can feel it.
Oh, no, definitely not.
So
that one felt good, though.
It did. It's perfect because there really are two companies.
It really felt organic, yeah.
First is Georgia Championship Wrestling, and second is Jim Crockett Promotions. So the Georgia Championship Wrestling, I don't know how much you get on your social media. I obviously get a lot of wrestling content on mine. I don't know if any of that filters over into... Okay. Well, I see a lot of memes and stuff with... you ever see like the old the videos of like Ric Flair on like the sound stage cutting a promo with like, Tony Schiavone with his mustache and...
Yeah.
And he's doing the classic Ric Flair thing, and there's the logo.
Woo! And all that.
Yeah. Exactly. A lot of that's from Georgia Championship Wrestling.
Okay.
And that was airing as far back as 1972. And that's so there's... Crazy. I know, well, there's this kind of... It predates cable TV. Mm-hmm. So Georgia Championship Wrestling ends up becoming the first of these. It is an NWA promotion.
Yeah.
And it becomes the first one of the promotion to get on cable.
Right.
Even before,
because it was like already existed.
Right. It was already on the network that Ted Turner would buy. That would become. Here's some nostalgia for you. Superstation TBS.
Superstation TBS.
6:05 on the Superstation.
Oh, man.
A long story tradition of wrestling on Saturday nights on this channel, Amy.
Man. I miss when it was a Superstation.
Going all the way back to 72.
We used to be a country.
We used to be a country. we used to have a network that was just called Superstation.
Superstation TBS.
Superstation TBS, starting on Turner time, 6:05.
Oh, yes. Everything was on the 5s.
Yep, which...
Weather on the 5s.
And this is the show that, like, that Gordon Soley hosted, and so it was taped in a studio, which is, like, completely different than how any wrestling show nowadays is taped, pretty much. I guess NXT would kind of be close to that.
Yeah.
But, yeah, you're basically in a studio with, like, a sort of, like, a crowd the size, like a game show size crowd.
Yeah.
Right.
Maybe a couple hundred, yeah.
Yeah. And you're all, and, like, Ric Flair standing there cutting his promo, and enough to where you can, like, hear individual people in the audience yelling at him,
That's crazy.
And then they're performing matches in the ring right there on the, like, on the soundstage. And it's just, I love the vibe of these old Georgia Championship Wrestling shows. They're so fun. And they filmed those at Techwood Drive, which is like this studio in Atlanta. Does
that still exist?
It does, yeah.
Oh. What do they film there now, I wonder?
I don't know what on that specific... A lot of stuff is filmed at Techwood Drive.
Okay.
But, or at least has... I think it's still an operating studio.
Huh.
So really the point of us talking about Georgia Championship Wrestling is something called Black Saturday.
Ooh, that sounds spooky.
It's not. It was spooky. It was spooky for fans of Georgia Championship Wrestling. That's for damn sure.
That's for sure.
So you have wrestling and you have wrestling. You have Vince McMahon's wrestling, which is the biggest WWF, which is the biggest wrestling company in the world at this point.
That is dignified wrestling.
World Wrestling Federation. It's run out of New York City.
New York City.
Actually, Stamford, Connecticut, but it's a northeastern territory. It's a Yankee territory.
It's better than us.
It's better than us, and it knows it.
And it knows it, and it's not afraid to tell us.
Yeah, so, they didn't want anything to do with Vince. And Vince was Vince was persona non grata amongst all these old school guys, because he was the one who was gobbling up the territory. Like, he destroyed the whole system, basically, by going into other territories and competing directly with these other companies. And so Vince McMahon, because he does Vince McMahon shit, we end up in a situation... especially this, like, in the 80s, just further documentation. Like, obviously he's done more, like, personal human stuff at this point that we could point to that's vile.
Much worse, yeah.
But, what a shitty dude.
Just pure evil.
Black Saturday. So I should also say that, here's where it gets confusing, because World Championship Wrestling is at first the name of a TV show, then becomes the name of the company.
Oh, interesting. Okay,
so because Georgia Championship Wrestling is now on nationwide cable on Superstation 605, they don't want it to sound regional. So Ted Turner was like, "Hey, can we change the name?" World Championship Wrestling was what they came up with.
It's got a good ring to it, right?
Got a good ring to it. So WCW or World Championship Wrestling is sort of the name of the show, but the company is still very much Georgia Championship Wrestling.
Yeah.
And they're not, unlike sort of Vince McMahon going in and directly competing, their argument for, like, well, why isn't Georgia Championship Wrestling getting all the flack for going nationwide that Vince is? Their argument was, well, we're only using Georgia wrestlers. So we're going into these other territories, but we're only using
We're just using the guys we already had.
Yes.
We're just
so that
distributing it.
That
worldwide.
was their argument.
We're not going in and taking everybody else's wrestlers.
Right.
Yeah.
So, what Black Saturday references is, so you have this show that's been well established on Saturday nights, right? 6:05 on the Superstation. People tune in for their wrestling stories. Mm-hmm. They tune in for their Ric Flair and their Dusty Rhodes and their Roddy Piper and all these legends that have come through this show over the years.
Yep.
And the Four Horsemen and all these are their guys. On April 9th, 1984, the part owners of the company, who were wrestlers known as the Briscoe brothers, sold their shares in the company to including the Saturday evening time slot on TBS to Vince McMahon.
What?
Yeah, and Briscoe's been a long time Vince guy ever since. Like this that goes back years. Not accusing him of any wrongdoing or anything, but
well, if he is associating with known sleazeballs.
Well, this is wrestling and wrestling. There's going to be a lot of sleazeballs. You just have to get used to it.
Oh God.
The Briscoe brothers sell their share in GCW to Vince McMahon, including the time slot. So Vince is all of a sudden taking over the show and installing his own stuff. So people tune in on Black Saturday, July 14th, 1984, to watch their wrestling, and our wrestling is gone. And this Yankee interloper has come in like Sherman in Georgia and burned our wrestling to the ground.
Yep.
And has installed. So, also Vince promises Ted Turner. He's like, no, we're going to create all new content for this show. It's going to be all new stuff you can't watch anywhere else. And then he immediately was like, nope, taped matches, like recap show. And so Ted Turner was like,
oh man,
what the fuck, man? And so the backlash is pretty huge.
Pretty severe.
Pretty severe. So Vince is a liar, of course. He finagles his way into this TV deal, basically taking his competition off the air and replacing it with his own.
That's crazy.
But he drastically underestimates the difference in taste of wrestling fans. Like, the network is like inundated with people who are pissed off. Like, where is my show?
Yeah.
Why is it this? And they don't like that kind of Vince McMahon, like, gimmicky, colorful,
angry, dirty Southerners.
Oh,
you do not want to make them mad. As we know,
you don't want to kick that hornet's nest.
No,
you don't want to
rile up the rednecks.
You do not want to rile them up. And what's the quickest way to do that is apparently
take away the
replace your preferred wrestling with some Yankee cartoon,
with some hoity-toity shit.
Hoity-toity Yankee cartoon.
Yeah.
So
not even any blood.
So the fans are pissed. The ratings, of course, plummet. Mm-hmm. And Ted Turner has no sympathy because he was promised one thing and got another thing.
Yeah. And
so he's like, okay, well, I didn't promise you, Vince McMahon, exclusivity. So what I'm going to do is these other two promoters, Ole Anderson, who was one of the other shareholders in Georgia Championship Wrestling, who did not sell his shares to Vince. He refused and instead went on and formed another company.
Okay.
And Bill Watts, who was the owner of Mid-South Wrestling, another kind of Midwestern territory.
Yeah.
And he's like, I'm going to give you guys spots on the network. So that not only, is Vince not the only wrestling show on this one network, he's one of three.
Yeah.
So this pisses Vince off, and Ted's like, oh, "Fuck you!" And it's a bunch of rich guy dick measuring,
Oh, for sure, for sure.
So, interestingly enough, the time frame here, if you'll recall, is about the spring of 1985, and Vince is like, between all of this, he's like, you know what, this isn't worth it. I don't need this shit.
I don't need this.
I don't need this shit. And I'll tell you what I do need, though.
I'm going to take my daddy's money and I'm going to go somewhere else.
He's like, well, I need money. He's like, that's what I do need instead of this shit. Because in the spring of 1985, what's Vince McMahon trying to do? He is trying to put on the very first WrestleMania in Madison Square Garden. And he needs money to do that. So in order to do that, he sells the time slot to Jim Crockett Promotions. Okay. And this is the second of two companies.
Two companies?
Two companies. And this is out of Charlotte, North Carolina.
Oh, well, sure. That's not too far from us.
No, not too far at all from us. The funds from this do go to help fund the first WrestleMania.
Oh.
And starting in April of 1985, I am 2 months old. April 6th, my 2-month birthday.
Yep.
1985. Begins the Jim Crockett Promotions era.
Okay.
Of the company. So Jim Crockett Promotions is already sort of like the last big remaining NWA territory.
So the show is still this whole time called World Championship Wrestling? It's just like who owns this
So it's like there's a couple... Yeah.
It keeps changing?
Throughout the 80s, basically, the show, until 1988, the show is called World Championship Wrestling that starts off as a Georgia Championship Wrestling show, then becomes a WWF show.
Right. And now
Jim Crockett becomes a Jim Crockett Promotions show, which is essentially like the second largest company. They are the one company that is identified with the NWA. Like,
so when they get the time slot and they get the show, they bring in all their own people and like everything's different.
It becomes a Jim Crockett Promotions, but like you're not seeing WWF guys on the World Championship Wrestling show anymore.
Okay, gotcha.
Right.
All right, I'm with you.
I knew you would be.
I'm along for the ride.
Yeah. So basically, the NWA is essentially falling apart at this point. It is it's in its death throes, even though it still sort of exists as a brand. The last of the big territories are either just collapsing or being bought up by Jim Crockett Promotions or WWF.
Right.
Essentially. So you have this civil war coming, right? You got a North and a South, right?
Literally,
the hoity-toity Yanks, and you got them damn rebels.
Yeah,
down south.
They just want to wrestle.
Get stank nasty.
Wrestle. They don't want to be told what to do.
In 1987,
hey, I see your Osborne.
Hey!
I see your Osborne.
Here's some more Vince McMahon chicanery.
Oh, God.
This is a good one. One. So in 1987, Jim Crockett Promotions has been running this event called Starrcade, which is their big show every year. And in 1987, they promote it as WWF has just had WrestleMania 3, which is like the biggest wrestling show ever at the time. And they're marketing this as this is our answer to WrestleMania. So they're really like that's part of it.
Yeah, really pushing it.
WWF, in turn, counter-programs and says, we are going to do an event called Survivor Series. And this is the first Survivor Series. On the same night.
Of course. Yeah.
And what they do is they strong-arm all these pay-per-view and cable companies. And they tell them, hey, if you carry Starrcade, you can't have WrestleMania or like further pay-per-views by us. So it basically strong-arms Jim Crockett Promotions, Starrcade, out of a bunch of major markets.
Oh my God.
Yeah. And he did it again a few months later with the Royal Rumble on TV.
Of course.
He was counter-programming to something else. Bunkhouse Stampede, I think.
God.
So...
He just sucks. He sucks so bad.
So in 1984, we get...
Oh, yeah.
Dusty Rhodes, Betty, if you will. Now, he is hired as the booker of Jim Crockett Promotions. In wrestling parlance, what is a booker? A booker is the guy who writes the show.
Good to know.
This is a great era. Oh my God, this is so good. This is the era of like when Sting was becoming a thing, right? So starting here in like these late 80s, Sting, you get Ricky Steamboat, you get Road Warriors, you get Magnum TA. Do you remember Magnum TA?
Magnum TA.
Hey, go ahead, do me a favor and just go on your Google machine and type in Magnum TA. Just Google image search the Magnum TA, just because I want you to be familiar. His career was cut short. I believe he was in a really bad car accident, and so he survived, but he didn't wrestle anymore. But he was going to be a big star.
He looks like someone our mom would have been very attracted to.
Oh, and what would that be, would you say, if you were describing it to someone who presumably does not know what Magnum TA is?
Very barrel-chested,
yes.
hairy, astonishing mustache.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Now, is this a Magnum PI? Like,
yeah.
Magnum TA? Okay, what did the TA stand for?
That's a good... Well, I don't know if it's that. Probably. You know, I don't know.
He has like a Jerry curled mullet.
Yes.
Oh, Terry Allen. His real name. Terry Wayne Allen.
And his name is Terry Wayne Allen. The most Texas redneck name that has ever existed.
Yes.
He took the top 3 Texas redneck names and combined them into his full name.
Yeah.
Terry
That's
and Wayne
like a
and
serial
Allen.
killer's name.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Terry Wayne Allen.
He assassinated some civil rights leader. That's awful. I shouldn't say that.
No doubt about it.
No doubt about it. This is the era we get like Dusty Rhodes in creative, which has its ups and downs, but you get shit like War Games, which is like 2 rings and 2 rings in a giant steel cage with a roof on the cage, and you get all kinds of
all kinds of fun shit.
Dusty Rhodes is the king of just like fun wrestling shit. Like everything's some kind of weird tournament with weird rules, and there's a bracket that no one understands, or there's
except for him.
There's like
he understands it.
There's like a full 3 minutes of rules that have to be read before the match starts so that people can understand what's happening. And sometimes some of it's better than others.
Classic Dusty.
Oh, classic Dusty. This is also the era which they start up like the Great American Bash, which is essentially their new kind of second biggest show of the year after Starrcade. But yeah, we also get things like Clash of the Champions, which is sort of like super shows that are on TBS on Saturday nights, sort of like a souped up weekly show.
Okay.
That they do like a couple times a year.
Yeah.
That's usually like a bit of a bigger card with bigger stuff going on.
It's like the super editions of the Babysitters Club.
That's exactly what it's like, actually. Mm-hmm. So Clash of the Champions are,
super special. Yeah.
They're super specials. Mm-hmm. Super specials. Yes, love it.
On the Superstation.
On the Superstation. Now, they did that to counter-program WrestleMania 4. Initially, the first one aired at the same time on free TV that WrestleMania 4 was going on. So I read that for a few minutes they got more viewers. The Ric Flair Sting main event. That's kind of where Sting becomes like a big main event guy, is that first Clash of the Champions. And for like 15 minutes they had more viewers than WrestleMania.
For 15 minutes they had it all.
They had it all. The world was theirs.
Literally their 15 minutes of fame. So
this the Jim Crockett era just essentially ends with Ted Turner just outright buying the company. He's like, I'm Ted Turner, and I own a wrestling company now,
and I'm gonna do it. I'm not pussyfooting around no more.
I'm not. I'm getting in the business. And
who was he married? Wasn't he married to someone famous?
Oh, yeah, he
like
was.
Jane Fonda or something.
I think he was married to Jane Fonda.
Yeah, I gotta to Google.
He
was.
That's speaking of another great mustache. Ted Turner had an interesting one, kind of a caterpillar.
Yeah, he was married to Jane
white
Fonda.
cat, but a white caterpillar.
Yeah, he had
the albino caterpillar.
The albino. Yeah, he did. So now Ted Turner owns it.
Almost immediately, because Ted's like, "Hey, don't do blood. Don't do blood. Don't do blood. Don't do blood on the show.
Cut that.
Cut that." Dusty is like, "Hey, new daddy, I'm going to run an angle where one of the Road Warriors pulls a spike out of the shoulder pad and cracks me in the eye with it, and I'm gonna bleed, I'm gonna squirt blood everywhere, and it's gonna be disgusting. And so he did that, and then Ted Turner was like, "Oh, yeah, you're fired."
Oh. I said no blood, and this is a lot of blood.
I said no blood, and that was a lot of blood from your eye. And so he fires.
It's a very Dusty Rhodes thing.
Yeah, which and like anything in wrestling, oh, don't worry, he'll be back. Just give it a year, he'll be back.
Yeah.
So 1989 is like one of the best years ever in WCW. Yeah. Basically, you have Ric Flair as the world champ. Ric Flair's now the head booker. He's the booker of the show. It's crazy to me that these companies were run by the wrestlers. Like it was like
the people for the people, Justin.
It was the inmates running the asylum, and it never stopped. It never stopped in WCW all the way to the end.
We think maybe that's why there is an end?
That's a conversation.
Almost definitely.
There's a whole lot that goes into the demise of WCW, but yeah.
And also every 2 to 3 years, the owner is changing. So
at this point, that's it for the changes, right? So at this point, Ted Turner buys the company, and so there's this weird kind of like in between phase where they are still acknowledging NWA on the show because it's like we're still a NWA product, but NWA is essentially just a brand name at this point. Like it's like in shambles. And Ted Turner's like, we're going to call the company World Championship Wrestling because that's the name everyone knows. So the company becomes WCW October 11th, 1988. And from then on, it's WCW owned by Ted Turner on Superstation TBS.
On Superstation TBS.
That's right. And this is the year that you get the legendary Ric Flair, Ricky Steamboat trilogy of matches, which are kind of...
Ricky Steamboat sounds like a porn actor's name.
Well, funny thing about Ricky Steamboat.
Did he go on to do porn?
No.
Oh.
No. No, Ricky Steamboat... Ricky Steamboat's awesome. His real name? Richard Blood.
No, it's not. That's a way better wrestling name.
Dick Blood. The man is Dick Blood. No.
Why didn't he just go with that?
I don't know.
Ricky Steamboat seems like... Well, Steamboat seems like a sexual maneuver of some kind that he is really good at, so... Ricky Steamboat...
I never went there with Steamboat. My mind went to Steamboat Willie. That was not where your mind went.
Well, I think it's just with the name Ricky. There's just... It sounds like an 80s porn star name.
I'm Ricky Steamboat. And this is Brutus Beefcake.
Yeah. Those don't sound like gay porn actors. Yeah, okay. Ricky Steam... Yeah, he's about to give you the Ricky Steamboat.
It's not gay. They're just oiled up and rolling around on the mat together. And
on national television. It's fine. It's very heterosexual.
Yeah.
Okay, continue.
No, so 89 is... getting back on topic, Amy.
Well,
89 is the year of the Flair and Ricky Steamboat trilogy. You get the Chi-Town Rumble. You have 2 out of 3 falls match.
And 2 out of 3 ain't bad, so...
2 out of 3 ain't bad. You got the Wrestle War match.
That's what Meatloaf said.
I'm partial to Chi-Town Rumble myself, but I'm open to other opinions. Let me know, Amy, which one is your favorite?
Well, I am not familiar with any of them, so I'll just take your word.
Chi-Town Rumble.
Okay, I'll take your word for it. It's Chi-Town Rumble.
Okay, all right, cool.
Yeah.
This also... Okay, so here's where we start to get some, like, young talent, like, sort of startup that you might be familiar with. You remember Sexy Lex Luger?
Of course I do.
Oh,
Was he the one that they did they tried to push him to be, like, the next bit, and they had the match out on the giant, like, Navy ship?
Where he body slams Yokozuna on the USS Intrepid. When I was in New York City... earlier this year, we drove past the Intrepid, and I thought, oh my god, that's the place where Lex Luger body slammed Yokozuna, July 4th, 1993.
April just walked away from you.
Well, she's used to it. She's used to it. She likes me, okay?
She likes you for you.
Sid Vicious. Remember Sid? He would be Psycho Sid later in WWF.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Now talk about a Jerry curled mullet.
Oh Lord, yes.
Oh, and talk about videos I never want to see again. Him breaking his leg in that one WCW match.
Oh, I couldn't watch that.
I watched it one time.
Oh no, thank you.
Do not recommend it.
Now this is when we get
of course,
Sting.
we talked about. Well, Sting is already kind of like he just sort of became like main event level dude at this point, right? So tell me what when I asked you, what do you remember if anything about WCW? You were like Sting.
I don't know why. That's just who I remember.
So like what? Let's describe Sting as you remember him.
Sting is the bleach blonde hair.
Surfer dude, bleach blonde hair.
Yeah, bleach blonde hair.
Yeah.
Yeah. Skin of a hot dog.
The crew cut, skin of a hot dog, face paint.
Face paint, yes.
Colorful, lots of colors, lots of tassels, face paint, doing the woo!
Almost like a Ultimate Warrior tassel, colorful.
And him and the Ultimate Warrior were tag team partners.
That makes total sense.
Before they respectively got big. Mm-hmm. So yeah,
that makes sense. They had very similar vibes.
Sting and Blade. Sting and it was the Blade Runners, but it was Sting and I don't remember what Warrior's name was.
Okay, interesting. So there's always also the Road Warriors. Now, is this like a Mad Max kind of bit?
Well, you know the Road Warriors. It's Legion of Doom, spiky shoulder pads, face paint.
Oh yeah. Okay.
Yeah, and yes, and to answer your question, Road Warriors is definitely a Mad Max thing.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, you get the Steiners, you get Great Muta. There was always a lot of working with Japanese companies, and later on working with like Mexican companies. Mm-hmm. So you would tend to get, and it just became more so as the years went on. Mm-hmm. You saw a more diverse style of stuff on WCW programming. You saw more like later on you would see luchadors. You got the Great Muta. You had a lot of like Japanese crossover, even going back to this time. And you had like sort of the like young, like kind of up and coming guys. So you had like Brian Pillman. You had
That's a terrible wrestling name. That's just like
Brian
your neighbor.
Pillman.
Your neighbor, Brian Pillman.
I mean, I think that is his real name.
Well, no.
Well, not when you add flying to the front of it, and he's Flying Brian.
Okay, that's better.
Yeah.
But I mean, he could have used a Ricky Steamboat.
You and the names. That's too boring. That's too gay.
Well, it's not too gay. It just sounds like a porn actor.
Okay.
Let me be clear. But Brian Pillman, it just...
You don't want to anger the gays either. We're going to anger the rednecks and the gays in this episode, and we're never going to recover from it.
Those groups typically don't overlap.
But
I can't be alienating two large groups like that.
I gotta have one or the other.
Not during Pride Month.
Not during Pride.
Not during Pride. I did not say it was too gay. I just said it sounds like a gay porn actor's name, not a wrestler's name. Like, and Brian Pillman is just too, like, that's just too, like, he's your accountant.
Right. No. Yeah.
I mean, he just could have, Flying Brian, I'll give it, that's better. That's
okay.
better.
And he was high flying.
Huh?
Was Brian.
I would hope so.
Yeah. I should hope Brian's going to fly, or
otherwise it's just a lie. Yeah.
So in 1990, Ric Flair gets replaced as the head booker by Ole Anderson, and they start incorporating a lot more like WWF style gimmicks into things. I did put a link in the notes here for an appearance. The first thing that comes to mind when I think of these WWF style gimmicky things is RoboCop showing up to help Sting. So there's a clip if you want to watch it there. It's about 10 seconds long.
Now, wait a minute, the Horsemen are already out. They just threw Sting in the cage. They just threw Sting in the cage that Cornette was in. Sting has been caged by the Horsemen, but here comes RoboCop, Bob.
And here comes RoboCop, Bob.
I'm going to start using that.
So you get the infamous Chamber of Horrors match, which is just as amazing as it sounds, which involves someone being executed in an electric chair.
Someone being brutally murdered.
Yes, a brutal murder.
Television.
Yeah, and it's just one of the most hilariously awful things that has ever happened in wrestling. You get the terrible Black Scorpion storyline that's like this masked wrestler who's attacking Sting, and it goes on forever, and it's a very WWF, but not any of the good parts of WWF. I like all the cheesiest parts.
Now, they did that Halloween Havoc. I do remember that.
Oh, now, Halloween Havoc becomes a thing in 1989, and if for no other reason that I want to celebrate WCW, it's because of the existence of Halloween Havoc.
I mean, WWF didn't have a Halloween show every year.
To have a Halloween show. A Halloween-themed show. And it's, like, Amy, the sets, like, the early ones are, like, black and orange ring ropes. And like all the sets are like black and orange and pumpkins everywhere. And then you get into the late 90s with it, and you get these big elaborate stages of like graveyards and haunted houses and the big inflatable like Snickers presents Halloween Havoc pumpkin.
Hey Justin.
Yeah.
You remember Halloween?
I'm thinking about it right now.
Right now. You know, it's gonna be here
now
before we know it.
Yes.
Before you know it, we're going to be recording our Halloween episodes.
No, I can't wait.
Yes. I want a giant Snickers inflatable.
There actually was one for sale on eBay not too long ago. One of the ones that they used.
To eBay.
To eBay. So there's a lot of confusion sort of from this point with the exact relationship with the NWA and WCW. NWA is basically in shambles. And I'm not really going to get into... I really don't. It's kind of just a bunch of...
Boring
stuff that you're not going to...
Business stuff, yeah.
Yeah, that you're not going to care about. So, essentially, starting in January 1991, WCW was recognized as its own separate company.
Okay.
And it still deferred... So, it still acknowledged the NWA world title. So, essentially, from this point on, we have 2 world championships.
2 world championships?
World championships, Amy. We have the NWA and the WCW one, and they're like, we'll let you guys decide when the NWA title changes hands, and that's the extent of your power.
Oh, okay.
Basically. So there's weirdness with the world titles and their relationship with the NWA. But what I really want to talk about is a guy named Jim Herd.
Okay.
And Jim Herd is a notorious figure in the history of WCW because he is hired on as essentially like the executive vice president. He's the new boss, and he has no wrestling experience whatsoever. He was the manager of a TV station somewhere, and he was a Pizza Hut regional manager.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Well, no one out pizzas the Hut.
They don't. But I feel like old Jim, probably, it was not too hard to out-pizza him.
Oh, not great.
So, this goes over great. He immediately proves to be awful. I just made note here of a couple of his proposed gimmicks.
The acts, yeah.
That I wanted to point out to you. One of his ideas is a tag team called the Hunchbacks. And the gimmick is that they have hunchbacks. And you can't... So their shoulders can never be pinned to the mat. Because of the hunchbacks. So how do you pin them? And that's the gimmick.
The unpinnable hunchbacks.
The unpinnable hunchbacks. The Ding Dongs, which are essentially the team where the gimmick is bells. And we're going to call them Ding and Dong.
Are they the bells from the Claymation Christmas?
I assume they wouldn't be quite so unnerving.
Bells.
But maybe.
They're just clanging to the ring.
Just clang. Just up
the stairs. Just like one at
discordant bell noise.
Just like weird muffled on the ground. Like bell noise.
I'm Ding, I'm Dong.
And once you knocked it over, it would not be able to get back up.
No.
It's a fucking bell.
But how do you pin it? Again.
It has no shoulders.
How do you pin a bell?
Pin it.
It's round.
I like that he's just going with how can we win? Well, we just create characters that can't physically be pinned. And now we've figured out a loophole.
Yeah.
We won wrestling.
Yeah, we won wrestling.
We won wrestling.
I also wanted to mention Big Josh, which was a Jim Herd creation, which was...
Sounds like a Nickelodeon show.
It does. There was a wrestler named Big Josh, and his gimmick was Lumberjack, with 2 dancing bears that would accompany him.
Now that's gay.
Now that is pretty gay. Now, I want you to go ahead and probably just Google a picture of old Big Josh, too, because if I recall... He did have
Josh.
Denim cutoffs.
Big Josh. This is going to really skew.
Big Josh WCW. Don't
targeted
I'm
ads.
sure Big Josh.
Oh Lord.
Uh huh.
Wait, his name was Matt Osborne?
Yeah, that's actually Doink the Clown, the guy that played the original Doink the Clown.
What?
Yeah.
Was it Doink? Oh, that was Dink. Never mind. I was like, wasn't Doink really little?
And Wink and Pink.
Oh, Jesus Christ. Oh, he's dead.
Big Josh was Doink the Clown. Yes, I know.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, well, you don't have to apologize to me.
I was more apologizing to him because it's just not a great look.
No, I don't think he was probably the proudest of Big Josh, but Doink ruled. Original Doink ruled.
Sure. Big Bubba, Big Josh... Born Again, Doink this is what Wikipedia has them all listed.
Oh, I love But when you just Wikipedia,
when it's just a link right here, it just shows them all as one thing, and so it's just like Big Bubba, Big Josh, Born Again, Doink the Clown, Great Mustafa, Matthew Born, Reborn. Like it's all one name, but then when you click on it, they're all divided up. That's a lot.
Yeah.
That's a lot.
Mainly known as Doink.
Yeah. Well, that's a terrible wrestling name. May he rest in peace.
Yeah, Big Josh.
Doink the Clown, much more memorable.
So Jim Herd's on fire with all these gimmicks, right?
Oh,
and everyone is loving it. So he's like, my management strategy is to come in, give the world's shittiest ideas, and butt heads with everybody here. Mm-hmm. He's like, that's my style. So he's like Road Warriors, Legion of Doom, like big, most popular tag team. I'm gonna drive you nuts, and you're gonna quit. You're gonna go leave and go to WWF, which is when they show up over there.
Oh, good.
Stan Hansen, who is like kind of his most legendary stuff is in New Japan, and he does this kind of he's an old school real redneck wrestler dude who does this cowboy gimmick, and he lives the gimmick. He is that.
He brings real guns into the ring.
I think probably at one point, yeah.
They want
him to do a comedy bumbling cowboy gimmick, and he's so offended by it that he's like, "Fuck you, I quit. I'm going back to Japan."
He's like, "I'm a real, literal cowboy. How dare you ask me to do that?"
Yeah, you just besmirch my cowboy honor. I hate it when my cowboy honor gets besmirched.
That's terrible.
Jim Cornette and Stan Lane quit the company, which breaks up the Midnight Express, one of the best tag teams ever. But most significantly, Jim Herd butted heads with Ric Flair, who is obviously the biggest name in the company, the biggest draw in the company.
Yeah.
He is what Hulk Hogan is to WWF. Ric Flair is to WCW. He is the second close second most famous wrestler in the world after Hogan.
Right.
And so Jim Herd is like, and this is not to forgive how shitty Ric Flair is, but Jim Herd's an idiot. He's like, hey, you're done, even though you bring us the most money.
Oh,
so
he's like, we'll figure it out.
Here's what I want you to do. I want you to take a pay cut. We're gonna move you down to the mid card, and the whole Nature Boy gimmick that got you famous. Cut that. We're gonna shave your head.
Oh God.
We're gonna put you in a gauntlet thingy, and we're gonna call you Spartacus, like a gimp, almost like a gimp, like a Roman gladiator kind of.
Oh.
To Ric Flair.
And he said.
And he said, "Yeah, I quit." Like no.
He said, that's a big no for me, dog.
That's gonna be a big no from me. And so, actually, he didn't quit. He got fired because he refused to...
Because he wanted to collect unemployment.
Well, I mean, I'm not shaving my head and dressing up like a gladiator. I mean it'd be pretty gay. Fair. Not that there's anything wrong with that.
Not that there's anything wrong with that.
But, so, here's where it actually gets, like, real-world interesting. Well, it's already real-world interesting. Mm-hmm. This leads to a gigantic clusterfuck at the Great American Bash, because he gets fired about a week or two before the Great American Bash, which he was supposed to...
Who do they even have to wrestle at this point?
I think it's Sting and Lex... So, I think it's Sting and Lex Luger, I want to say. And the whole pay-per-view, everybody chants, "We want Flair." Ooh. Because everyone was very well aware of the situation. Mm-hmm. And they literally didn't have... So, Flair still had the actual belt, right? The World Championship. He still had it. And I'm going to talk about that more in a second. But literally, they put duct tape over like an old tag team title belt that said World Champion. And that's belt. That's the belt that Lex won at the end of the night.
Holy shit.
Yeah. And everyone shit all over it because it was like, everyone knows, like, Flair never got beat. He's the champion. We know he really got screwed out of stuff.
Right.
And this doesn't matter because this is not legitimate, air quotes, heavy sarcasm.
I think we talked about that a little when we talked about Lex Luger.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, so interestingly, when you're the world champion back in these days, these belts are not cheap to make.
Oh, I imagine
right?
not.
They're very, very expensive. So you physically carry the belt around with you everywhere. It is now like yours. You're responsible for it.
You're goes going to down to get a cup of coffee.
You travel with it. Well, you're wearing it. Now, you travel with it. You
go down to the Starbucks to get a latte.
You
got it on over your chinos.
Wearing the world title over your chinos.
You're like, this is too expensive to... I mean, it's either that or a safety deposit box. You can't just leave that lying around.
No, you can't. You can't. I won't.
You can't. It's irresponsible.
So, Flair, because this is so expensive, Flair had to put down a $25,000 deposit.
Did he buy it? Did he buy his championship?
No. They wouldn't give him his $25,000 back. They're like, we're stripping you of the title. And he's like, cool, you can have it. Give me my $25,000 back. And they're like, no. So he's like, all right, I'm keeping my title.
To get it, was it basically like, who can pay me $25,000 gets to...
No. Oh. No.
But they were like, here's the title, you won the match. Now, to keep that, you're going to need to give us $25,000. That's what it was?
Right. Well, it's kind of an insurance policy. That you'll incur... If you lose this... Like,
yeah, they have $25,000.
We're taking it out of your butt, you know.
Yeah.
But just
if you leave this in the bathroom at Starbucks because it was too heavy to keep on while you're pooping,
your deposit.
That's coming out of your
same thing as a deposit on an apartment, you know.
Okay.
If you smear shit all over the walls, that's coming out of your deposit.
Okay, it's fair.
So they won't give him his money, so he keeps the belt, then if you'll recall in our Golden Era episode several years ago, Ric Flair goes to Vince McMahon and works for WWF, takes that belt onto TV.
Real world's champion.
Woo! Playing the exact same gimmick. He is Ric Flair. He is the real world's champion. He has the belt.
He has the belt.
It's so good. I mean, prove him wrong.
Prove him wrong. Yeah. Find the lie.
So there is more confusion with the world titles. Essentially,
World Confusion Wrestling, more like it.
That is very accurate in several senses. What a mess this company was. Just from the beginning, and it only gets worse.
Messy.
It only gets worse. So essentially, there's two world titles for a while until '94, when Ric Flair sort of unifies them, and that's like the last vestiges of the NWA are gone. Essentially, the last vestiges of the NWA are gone in '93 when they rename the NWA title. Blah blah blah. There's still two of them now. There's a different name. They get unified. There's one title now.
Okay.
But that's what's important for bigger picture stuff is that after all of this, so Jim Herd he gets fired, right? He's there.
Yes.
He's there a year. They let him go. They replace him with Bill Watts. Bill Watts sucks as a person, so he gets fired pretty quickly. And so in 1993, in February 1993, former commentator Eric Bischoff is appointed to the executive vice president of WCW, and this is maybe the most important person in the story from here on out. Is Eric Bischoff?
Isn't he also terrible?
No, I don't know.
No? Okay.
No, not that I'm aware of. No.
Oh, okay.
I mean, it depends on if you really like his shows or not. But I mean, outside of the wrestling circle,
name, I was like, is he another one who did something really terrible? I can't ever remember.
No, Eric Bischoff lives on a ranch with his wife in in the middle of Wyoming, and just like spends his time making money doing wrestling podcasts and appearances and stuff.
Oh, okay, good for him then.
Yeah. So, Eric Bischoff started out as a backstage announcer and then becomes like a commentator and becomes like kind of a host, and now he is being appointed to a real life office job as you're the executive vice president of the company. Like, you're deciding how money gets spent. You're like big stuff.
That's crazy.
And one of the first things he does in that summer is he begins what are called the Disney tapings. And talk about world confusion wrestling. Amy, you're gonna
do they put like Roger Rabbit in? To like,
no,
is it like become half animated?
The Disney tapings are only the Disney tapings because they were filmed on a studio at Disney MGM Studios.
Like at the park?
Yeah.
Holy shit, that's awesome.
TNA filmed their show at Universal.
That's so cool.
Up until a couple years ago, I think. They did for a while.
I know it's Hollywood Studios now, but it'll always be
MGM Studios.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
No. So the crowds were a lot of times not even wrestling fans. They didn't know who any of these people were. They were tourists. And so it was like, hey, come on in and
they're like,
watch a
it's
wrestling
too hot
show.
to ride, and he's just stand in line. I'm gonna go
watch the wrestling show. So they would like instruct them when to cheer and boo, and a lot of the times like they would produce it that way. Now here's the funny part: they did this as a cost cutting measure because we're going to film our weekly syndicated show at these TV tapings. But in order to do all this, they would have to tape things months in advance. And so wrestlers were often forced to be on camera on the show with belts that like they hadn't actually won yet, that they wouldn't win for a couple more months. So it started exposing future storylines because it's like it would get out that like so-and-so's gonna win at this show because he already filmed with the belt.
They don't have those people sign damn NDAs or something?
Not all these tourists, no.
That's so stupid.
So it just throws things into things get so confusing
World
behind the
confusion.
scenes because it's like
wrestling.
You can't tell and nothing is happening in order. Everything is like we're gonna film a show where you're the champion, but you're not actually the champion. But now, like later, we're gonna have you win the championship, and they're like there was confusion about tag belts and storylines ended up getting dropped, and it's a hilarious world confusion wrestling.
They really seem to have a good handle on things over there.
They do.
I can't believe they
run
under.
a real tight ship.
Very tight ship.
So we start to see a little glimmer of hope. That as all this is happening, and honestly, the decline has been going on for a couple years now in just like the enjoyment of the product. Ric Flair comes back. Hey!
Oh yay!
Yeah, he basically his contract with WWF was up, and he's like, "Cool, Jim Herd's gone. That's why I left. I'm gonna go hang out with my friends." And so it was an amicable split.
Yeah, that's
he
good.
shows back up because he has a so many day non-compete in his contract. They're like, well, we want to get you on TV ASAP, but you can't wrestle because of this contract. So they give him a talk show, like a Piper's Pit like talk show segment.
Yeah.
So it's like, so we get Ric Flair on TV, just no matches yet.
Yeah.
And so then we get a Flair for the gold.
Oh my
God. Ric Flair's talk show. Now this is most famous for one of the most famous moments in the history of WCW, and that is the debut of the Shockmaster.
What is that?
The Shockmaster, I'm going to have you watch it, okay? But before you do, so this is basically a setup to a big, it was the Beach Blast main event, which is like their summer show.
Beach Lake at Bingo?
Yes. Mm-hmm. And it was going to be, it was, you'll see in the clip, Sting and the British Bulldog, and the bad guys are Sid and Vader, and the Shockmaster was formerly Typhoon Tugboat in WWF. He's coming over. All of these
sound like sexual acts.
Yes.
British Bulldog, Typhoon, Tugboat.
British Bulldog does, now that you say that.
They all sound like sexual maneuvers.
So I just want to just pause for a moment and give you a minute, because it's about 2 minutes long. The unforgettable debut of the Shockmaster here in the notes. Just watch that little gem, because it's a good one.
I don't care who you are, boy. I don't give a damn who you are. You're gonna have us. You're gonna have Vader, and we're gonna be breathing through your neck.
So you're the man that rules the world. They call me the Shockmaster. You've ruled the world long enough, Sid Vicious. Get ready. Come on, you want a piece of me? You want a piece of me? Come and get me. Come after me, Sid. I'm ready. Along with Davey Boy, Sting, and Dusty Rhodes.
Oh my God.
So let's break that down for a moment.
Justin.
The Shockmaster burst through a wall.
Like the Kool-Aid Man.
And
his fucking glitter helmet. Now that's gay.
That's a Stormtrooper helmet that has been painted with glitter paint.
Not very well, might I add, because it's all come off on his chest.
Busts ass through the wall and just takes a header.
And the helmet falls off immediately.
Falls off. He puts it back on.
Immediately.
I'm so happy I get to introduce you to the Shockmaster.
That was
listening to their reactions on the microphone, like on the audio, is my favorite part, maybe.
Oh my God.
Like when you hear, like, Flair and Bull, like, everyone, and even, like, the voice he was doing.
Yeah, what is that?
That was Ole Anderson doing that voice, and he's laughing as he's doing the voice.
How long did that go on?
Well, that wasn't the best way to start things.
Well, no, his helmet fell off.
His helmet fell off. They did lean into it a little bit at first and give him kind of like a bumbling comedy thing, and like be like, okay, now, well, it's a thing now that he's gonna fall, and it died a death.
Oh boy.
Yeah. We love the Shockmaster, one of the all-time just funniest, best wrestlers.
Just what a flop.
And I just love at one point Ole Anderson's cutting the promo, and you can just hear British Bulldog. He fell on his fucking horse.
Oh my God. Also, Shockmaster, that's a sexual maneuver.
What is happening with you? Did you just...
No, it just...
Are you a mid-2000s college student?
Tell me I'm wrong. Listeners.
Tell me I'm good.
How many of these names? Sex acts.
So we get the Shockmaster, which is a positive omen of things to come.
Yes.
But by the end of '93, they're kind of rebuilding the company around Flair. Things are looking up. Mm-hmm. But then once you get to '94, you have Eric Bischoff's biggest brainchild yet, which is
take everybody for WWF.
I'm gonna take everybody. I'm gonna take everybody. I'm gonna take all their big stars. So starting in 1994,
I'm just gonna get wrestlers from another thing.
Here's the thing. I have Ted Turner money, so I'm gonna go out and I'm gonna talk to Hulk Hogan, and I'm gonna talk to Macho Man Randy Savage, who are like the most famous wrestlers in the world, and they had all kinds of bargaining power because they're the most well-paid, most famous wrestlers in the world.
Sure.
And they've got Ted Turner money, and they know it. So it's like, well, we're going to get some good stuff if you want to hire us. We're going to get multi-year, multi-million-dollar contracts, creative control over the characters. I mean, Hogan at one point was getting paid like $700,000 a match. Like,
that's damn near Friends money.
I know. And so they Hulk Hogan signs with WCW. We last seen him in WWF in 1993 at King of the Ring, getting squashed by Yokozuna, who killed Hulkamania. And then he went to Japan for a little bit, and then he, tried to do movies as he always did, and did like Thunder in Paradise, which I'm glad for. And then he's like, "Cool, I always wanted to just go back to wrestling, so here I am in WCW." And
now this is when he had the whole the Hollywood Hogan started over here at some point, right?
Yeah, he's still Hulk Hogan. He's still a good guy. He's still the hero. Okay. He's still the red and yellow. It's Hulkamania. But
he does the Hollywood Hogan thing at WCW, doesn't he?
We're getting there. We're getting there next episode. Don't worry.
Okay.
But for now, Hulk Hogan comes over and he's the Hulk Hogan you know. He's got Jimmy Hart and he's cutting the promos and he's saying the taglines and all of that stuff. Later in the year, Macho Man shows up in December. You start to get this influx of Hogan's boys who start to come in. So it's like
Hogan's heroes, if you will.
Hogan's heroes. Your Hacksaw Jim Duggins, your Big Boss Mans, your Nasty Boyses, your Brutus Beefcakes, Amy.
I mean,
your brother
Brutai. You can't tell me that one doesn't sound like a porn actor.
Oh well, that gimmick literally was like Chippendale originally. So yeah, that there actually is legitimacy to that one. Yeah. Of course, this has the effect, and we're gonna kind of end here because I feel like Hogan coming on board is the turning point.
Okay.
That's when to me I feel like there's two halves.
Turns the beat around.
There's two halves of WCW history, and it's kind of I feel like Hogan getting there changes everything. So
that is a great place to stop then, as we embark on this new and final chapter.
Yes.
WCW.
Yes. There are only 2 chapters, and we'll get to the second one next episode.
Yes.
But for now, Hulk Hogan's on board. They're spending a ton of money, and Eric Bischoff's like, I want to go head-to-head with WWF. I want to, take it to Vince McMahon. And Ted Turner's like, here's checkbook. Go and do it.
The streets, yeah.
I don't like that Yankee.
And that's your Ted Turner impression. Is that what he talks like?
That's what the WWF's impression of Ted Turner talked like.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
So yeah, next episode we've got monster trucks, and we've got supernatural evil realms that we're gonna visit. We have this little thing called the NWO. We have Mexican luchadors and Japanese wrestlers and little tiny guys like Chris Jericho coming in, and we've got Goldberg streak, and we've got Sting sitting up in the rafters, and we've got DDP, and we've got we're gonna be the biggest wrestling company in the world, and then just really beef it, really beef it hard with a real spectacular fall from grace.
Well, I can't wait. That all sounds great.
Yeah, it's gonna be good stuff. It's gonna be good stuff.
We're gonna get way up here before we just take an absolute
a nosedive.
Just an absolute nosedive. Yeah.
That's gonna be a fun ride down. It's gonna be a fun ride down.
It's gonna be a fun ride down. All right. Well, thank you for once again educating me.
Of course. Thanks for listening to me.
We are first and foremost educators.
Oh sure.
So educating me and all of our listeners about this first era of WCW.
Well, no problem. I'm your man.
And it's just nasty.
It's stanky and it's nasty. And I'll tell you what, it's going to get stankier and nastier.
Oh, I mean, the nasty boys have literally just showed up, so.
Yeah, quite literally. WCW is now nasty-sized.
Nastified. All right.
Remember when they would stick their opponent's face in the other's armpit?
They're just
and rub it around.
Nasty.
It was the pit stop. You were just right in the armpit there.
Yeah.
Take you to Pity City.
Oh, Jesus. All right, let's get to the plugs.
Yeah, why don't you go ahead and do that?
Oh, me? Oh, okay, sure. Well, if you'd like to follow us on the social medias, check us out over on Instagram and Threads and X. We are at Cool Kids Club Pod. You can also check us out on Facebook if you search for Cool Kids Club Podcast. Also, go follow Justin's new Instagram, which is Cool Kid Clubhouse. where he is posting all sorts of photos and videos of his massive toy collection, essentially, among other things. I mean, also a physical media collection.
Yes.
But yeah. And I already told everybody to check out your other podcast, Blue Bard Cage.
There you go.
Yeah.
You're Amy on Instagram.
Amy, yep.
I am Lousy with Ghosts, if you're interested in following either of us. Yes. Thank you to Brian. Hey guys, Wakefield.
Hey guys.
And BrianWakefieldMusic.com for
check him out.
For our wonderful theme songs. Thank you for producing Blue Bard Cage and writing some really great wrestling songs with us. Actually.
Yeah. He's also done that.
Very
multi-talented pediatrician. Yeah.
He is.
Yeah.
Jack of all trades.
Well, guys, we'll be back in 2 weeks with part 2.
2 weeks?
2 weeks?
2 parts?
2 parts? With our part 2 of this WCW chat. So, until then, stay cool.
Stay cool.